right, guys. Welcome back to another episode of our Mutual Minds podcast. For some reason, we forgot to even mention the name to our podcast in the first episode. But we came up with the name Mutual Minds, and I really love that.
Yeah, it was like one of the first ones that we kind of thought of, and we do think alike,
Yeah.
and
We have a lot of
we're together.
problems.
We don't have a lot of problems.
We don't have a lot of problems, but we just like think a lot and talk a lot. So it was
Yeah,
like mutual. Obviously, we're a couple, and then minds thinking. And I was like, yes, Eminem.
yeah,
Like Eminem, like we're together. We're like close knit. We're obviously a couple. So I felt like it fit so nicely. And if you guys don't already, you guys can follow us on Instagram under Mutual Minds Pods and see some clips there.
yeah. You'll get all like the sneak peeks behind the scenes, and if we ever like do segments where we want your input or like your questions, that will be the place to like find that and like have a chance to be featured in these because
Yes.
one of our main things is we really want this to be like interactive. Like
Yeah.
we don't want it to just be us talking all the
Oh
time.
God, no, that'd be awful.
So we really want to have like your stories, your viewpoints like included in this too. So definitely follow the Instagram. I think as far as like TikTok and YouTube, we're just going to post this on our regular socials,
Yes.
Isabel and Tamera. So
Yes.
be sure to follow us on there too because all the podcasts are recorded on a camera so you can watch us in real time while we're
Yeah.
talking too.
And today, episode 2, we wanted to talk about when dreams become reality.
Yeah.
And when we think about these words, instantly what comes to mind is our New York adventure that we just got back from. We spent 2 years living in New York City, and for both of us, that was always like a dream. Like, I feel like a lot of people, their teenage dream is like New York and LA, and like a lot of people, like coming from a small town, people just hate on you for like even wanting to like pursue that. And I think we both experienced that in different ways. And I think I even like bullied my own self into thinking that that would never happen. And that was actually the first city that we ever moved in together and had our own apartment.
Yeah.
So a lot went down there.
A lot went down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that you said like bullying your own self. Like, why are we all our own worst critic? Like, it's just
It's
so
so
unhealthy
bad.
and so bad. Like, we're so mean to ourselves.
I know.
But same with me. Like, I grew up in Nebraska, and I feel like a lot of people like stay in Nebraska. It is a very homey place. Like, I will say, it's like a very great place to raise a family and stuff. But I think like when I would mention to like my family or friends that I wanted to live in New York or LA, it was just like immediate like, okay, well, so do I, but like,
Yeah. But
you're
that's not
s-
going to happen. It's too expensive. It's too this.
I feel like it takes a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage no matter where you're coming from to like get up and just move all your stuff and your whole life to another place. But I think especially when you're in like the Midwest, I feel like there's like a rep kind of just like kind of staying in like the circle.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, I just like it was so normal to feel like you had to just stay there. And I think my family and friends were very shocked, even when I just
Yeah.
moved in with you, because like that
Yeah.
was still in New York.
Yeah.
And
That was like a cross country move at a very young age.
yeah,
It's
very.
kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, why did you want to move to New York? Like, what was it about New York that like stuck with you?
I mean, New York is truly like nowhere else. And I think like my first urge to live in New York was when I was in high school. Like, even before I knew you or the friend group that we had at the time, I just always found it so fascinating. And I think because I always felt kind of like an outcast, if I have any outcast people like listening to this, like I feel you. And I always just felt like the odd one out, like I didn't belong anywhere or in any circles. And so I felt like cool and like open-minded people lived in LA and New York. So that's why I was
Yeah.
like, I have to go there. And I don't know why, like I was the quietest kid. Like I really only had like one friend at a time growing up. Like I never had like a big group of friends. I never like went out much or anything like that. So I think like living in a big city and like living the big city life just really, really intrigued me. And I think also because I didn't feel like I belonged, I just like knew that there were other weird people in those places, people who followed their dreams. And I just thought that was really cool. And like I never had any like, I was never in acting, I was never in like modeling or pageants or anything like that. But for some reason, my 18-year-old self was like, I'm moving to LA and I'm gonna be an actress. Like I
Slay.
barely can like order my own food at a restaurant, and like I thought I was gonna just go to LA and be an actress. I don't know where that came
I
from.
think that's amazing, though.
Thanks, babe.
I really do. And I think for me, I was always just like a big dreamer. I wanted to be in YouTube. I wanted to like sing. I wanted to do something creative. And I knew that like living in Poughkeepsie or in like a small city, that would never be anything, I guess. And like you always had to go to the bigger cities to get more opportunities. And also like New York was so big for like concert culture and like going to like live concerts. Like that was so big for me, going to concerts and listening to live music. And there's just like a whole scene in New York for that.
I was gonna
Obviously LA
say,
too.
yeah, I was gonna say that too. Like my teenage self, like thrived going to concerts, and a lot of my friends, because I was horrible at making friends in person, a lot of my friends were online, and if
Yeah.
a lot of you,
We
Isabel
all
included,
lived in New York.
lived in New York, and so I always felt like I was missing out on like the concerts and
Yeah.
like going to Jimmy Fallon and random like free things that you can do in New York. So a big part of like my real like decision and like excitement about New York was like being a part of like my friend group that I had like online and like getting to go to all that stuff with you guys.
Yeah.
And then I think like my first time visiting New York, I was just like
Wide-eyed.
over the moon. Yeah, like it was so cool, just so completely opposite from what I had always known. And I was like, I just like have to live here. I don't know how or when.
It's just like a feeling. It's like a literal electric feeling. Like there's just something about that city that just opens you up in a different way. And just I think for me, I loved the idea of the fact that it was just so open-minded. Like you are never the weirdest person in the room. You were never off. You were never like you could have a mental breakdown in the street and no one will care. Like you could just wear whatever, you could do whatever. And you're never going to be looked at strangely because there's always somebody else that is way more off and way more
doing
wild than
something
you are.
way more weird than you.
And I loved that. And obviously, like being gay and being minorities, it was really important for us to like move somewhere where we feel safe. And every time we were there, it felt like there was like a community, and it felt like I was just seeing other people like us, like so much.
Yeah.
Like obviously there's gay people all around the world, but like you're not going to see as much of that in a small town in Poughkeepsie or a small town in Nebraska. Like it was just everywhere, and like everyone was okay and like felt safe enough to hold hands with each other, and in public it just felt electrifying.
Yeah.
And I feel like there was always a part of us that wanted to live in New York together, but we were always just like so scared. And I think maybe that was because of like parental figures or friends trying to tell us to like steer away and go to Texas and like do things that are like the easy way out. But I feel like we are just dreamers and we're just spontaneous people. And I'm so happy that I did it because I feel like I proved people wrong. And I
Yeah.
feel like I proved my younger self wrong that was bullying myself because we were actually able to do it. It wasn't easy, and we're going to get into that, but we made it work. We kind of slayed.
We did slay it. Like it was tough. It wasn't always easy. But we did do it.
Yeah.
So before we get into the peak and pit of New York,
Yes.
what was your peak and pit of your day?
My peak and my pit. I feel like my peak was definitely our evening walk. We've been starting to go on evening walks lately, and it's honestly been so nice. And I think it's really good for both of our mental health,
Yeah.
especially me. It's just been so hot to like go out during the day. So it was really nice to go out there tonight and just like walk and just listen to the birds. And it was amazing. My pit, maybe waking up so late.
Yeah.
We went to bed at like 2 o'clock in the morning last
Damn
night.
Threads app.
Oh my God, Threads had us. Oh my God. When you guys see this, Threads would already be out for like a month or two, but like this thing has me so hooked. We were just refreshing this literally until 2 a.m. Like we
Yeah.
couldn't do it the next day. Oh my God, it was so bad. But yeah, then we woke up at like 11 o'clock in the morning and I just kind of felt like sluggish and it was rainy. So I feel like that was my pit. What about you?
Okay, I have so many peaks of today. Like I feel like I wake up
love
a
that.
lot and feel like groggy or
Yeah.
sluggish or whatever, but today I have like several peaks. Okay, are you ready for this?
Give them to me.
Okay, my first peak was waking up and immediately going on Threads, and I was just feeling so silly, goofy, and I was
Yeah.
posting on our Threads account, and I got one of our posts like 40 likes, and I was feeling so slay about
High
myself.
five. And you were being funny. Like
know.
Tamera always thinks that she's not funny, and she's literally makes me laugh all the time. But like everything that she was saying on the Threads app today was just cracking me up. Like everything was just like a hit thread or tweet or whatever you would call it.
It's a thread.
A thread. Yeah, you were killing it on our
I was
account
having
today.
so much fun.
We like had so much fun that we forgot that we had like other platforms. So I'm so sorry to TikTok and
No, but literally
Instagram.
didn't post on TikTok because I was threading all day.
What was another peak?
My next peak was, I think, definitely our evening walk.
Yeah,
That was really nice. The sunset was so nice tonight.
so pretty
And
cute.
third peak, which is a part of the walk, is seeing the little baby frog.
That was so crazy.
It was so tiny.
That was like literally we saw the tiniest frog I think I've ever seen. I think I mistaken it as something else because I just didn't even think that frogs could be that small.
I know.
It was so
I've never
cute.
seen a
You should
baby
have
frog.
brought him home.
He was so fast.
I know. Frogs
Okay.
are really cute.
I could literally, you'll probably realize in these episodes, I could talk about animals for hours. Like,
Hours. Anything.
Like-
even rodents.
yeah, like
She'll
I'll
just go
see a
off and
bunny
off.
and like I will talk to Isabel about it for the rest of the night.
Yes.
I don't know, can't help it. But the pit of my day, I feel like I would say it was also waking up late. Like,
Yeah.
I think it was like 10:30ish, but like I like waking up like 8 and like
Yeah.
getting
or even
stuff-
7.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like getting stuff done or like going to the gym and then
Yeah, we were supposed to go to the DMV today, and instead we decided to go on Threads. So
yeah,
priorities
priorities
are very in line.
obviously.
But yeah, now we have to go tomorrow, even though we're filming this at like 10 o'clock at night. So again, priorities.
Where are
Putting
they?
you guys first. So with New York, when
New
we
York.
got to New York, we spoke about this a little bit in the last episode. We were so lucky to get a COVID deal. That is
So,
probably
yeah.
the only reason we had any faith in going to New York, because there was a COVID deal. We toured 3 apartments.
3 apartments.
The first 2 were horrible.
The first 2 were both in the East Village, which at the time we didn't know much about the neighborhoods. I didn't realize how cool of a neighborhood that is, and that's
Yeah.
where like everyone our age lives. So I probably would have taken one of those, even though they were pretty bad, just because it was like
No,
the cool
it was
area.
so bad. I don't think I could have.
It was bad, but it wasn't like
The first one
bad.
was like kind of a sleigh.
I think that was
besides
cute.
like
the rat poop in the
the
sink.
rat poop, which
Yeah.
is like a big deal.
But we
It
ended up
was
having
really
rat poop.
pretty though. I will say it was like super, super small, but the lighting was amazing. It had like 1 or maybe 2 windows,
But they were huge.
and it was like south facing.
Mm-hmm.
And the lighting was like blaring in. The bathroom was so bad though.
And it was a mini fridge.
Yeah.
But and it also was like a 5 floor walk
Yeah,
up
it
too.
was pretty rough. The second one was wrong address. Like you like showed up to the address, then he's like, "Okay, let's go down the street." And you're like,
This
"Well,
is
you said
sketch.
that this was the address and it's not the address." Yeah, that one was really bad.
But I heard that that happens a lot in New
There
York.
was like poop like on like the staircase. There was
Was
trash
there?
all over the hallways.
I remember there was trash in the
It
hallways and there was
was
like little dead roaches with the trash. But I will
just
say
not
that
very welcoming.
apartment was like cutely set up. Like the living room had those like green shelves.
See, I was just gonna say the shelves gives me so much
Really?
anxiety. I do not. There was too much.
I thought that was like a really cute
Oh my
vintage
god, I
touch.
couldn't even imagine like hanging clothes on shelves in my living room.
Also, that apartment, um, above it was like a no, below it was like a mental facility, mental hospital.
Yeah, forgot to mention that.
And no judgment. I'm mentally ill myself, but like
You would think that
me
someone
with them
would mention
combined,
that.
well, when we look at like the street map, that's where we saw it ourselves. But the bathroom in that one
Oh my
was
god,
horrifying.
horrible.
Like whole tub was brown. There was like dirt
Oh my god.
all over.
Oh my god.
I can picture it so vividly.
Oh my god, that's disgusting.
You don't remember that?
I do. I'm just trying not to remember it because it's not even funny. Like that's horrible.
No, it was pretty bad. And then the third apartment we toured is the one we ended up going with.
Oh my god. My Lord and Savior.
And this one was so weird because the first two we saw, they both were not what the picture was of. And that happens a lot in New York. I think like the landlord puts the best picture of all their listings on the thing,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
you get there and it's not even the
Nothing.
same unit.
Yeah. But this one was the only one that was exactly as advertised. The broker wasn't able to like show us it, so we actually got to see it ourselves, which was amazing because we didn't feel rushed or like didn't have like 70 people like in a unit
Yes.
with us.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Oh yeah, that was really bad.
When
And this is
you're
like a bunch of like NYU students that are like about to graduate with like a science degree, and like we're just like two little girls that like have like such shitty degrees, and we like don't have a job, and we're just like
we have no
"Ah."
goals. We just wanted
Like,
to live in New York.
And like I didn't know what you're supposed to ask like a landlord. I didn't know you're supposed to ask questions. I just wanted to like look around and put in an application. I didn't know you had to ask questions.
No, this was crazy. Like we were in these viewings with like 15 to 20 people, and like everyone's asking the landlord like questions and stuff, and like it's like what can we even ask that they didn't ask anymore? And like we're
No.
just like not like hustler go-getters like that. So like we just like we're like, okay, well our chances are out of we're done.
yeah.
Like that's out of there. Like so whatever. And then yeah, we saw the one that we went with, and we got to, like you said, go on
Yeah.
our own. So we weren't rushed. We were just there by ourselves,
It was
looking at
amazing.
everything. It was a 6th floor walk up, which was
Brutal.
brutal.
Absolutely brutal.
It was very brutal, but like when you're viewing the apartment and you're just going up that one time, you're like, oh, this is nothing. Like
I think we said that too. We're
We
just like,
did.
oh, it's fine. It's New York. Like
It's New York.
Like I can totally do that. That's New York. Like what does that even mean? Like
Oh my God,
it's
that
New York.
line.
Like yes, it is New York. What
I
does that have
think-
anything to do with the
I think
stairs?
anyone that has moved to New York
Oh my God.
has said, but it's New York.
It's fine. It's totally fine.
I feel like that
My
sentence,
mental health is horrible, but it's New York.
I was just gonna say, I feel like the sentence, but it's New York, could totally lead us into the pits of New York. But
Oh
let's
my
just
God.
stick with like how we got there. So yeah, we saw this apartment.
I wanted it immediately. I knew I wanted it when I saw it on Street Easy. I was like, I have to have this.
It was like the most like modern looking, but like still
Yeah.
like old, like New York's old vibes.
Mm-hmm.
But like the floors looked modern, and I think that was like okay, like I like this. This feels like homey.
And it had like the most windows out of all of them.
Yeah, there were
We
three
were like
windows.
facing a school and another building, but there were three windows, which in New York is like, you need to grab that. And it had a
Yeah.
one bedroom. That
It
was
was a one
huge.
bedroom.
The one bedroom is basically ends up being a studio, but it was a separate room with a door. And this was all for $1,500 in the Upper East Side.
And it gets better. There was actually laundry in the building.
In the building, which is also unheard of. If you're like living in Texas listening in, you're probably like, that is so bare minimum. But 1,500 in Upper East Side is literally just unheard of. So we had to jump on it, and we did. And we somehow got accepted. We had to use my dad as a guarantor. There was no way that we would pass. But we like got accepted, and I think we moved in like a week and a half after. It was very quick.
Yeah, but that's how it is in New York.
Yeah.
Like, you view an apartment, and if you don't have your papers ready and you apply the day that you saw it, like someone else is gonna grab it.
Yeah.
And then when you get approved, I feel like most landlords there like expect you to move in within a week.
Oh my God, yeah.
So-
And so I had a full-time job. So crazy to even like go back into all of this. I was working at a school with kids with autism, and that was like, it was really cool to like learn, but the job itself was just not, it was not good at all.
Yeah, like she came home crying like every
Like
single
literally
day.
every day. But this was like my first like big girl job, so like I felt like I was letting everybody down if I didn't stay. Things like took a turn for me personally very quickly. I feel like you though, you were like on cloud nine.
Yeah, it's so interesting because like our second year living there was like my worst nightmare, but I feel like you were kind of like thriving. But then the first year there, I was thriving, so I was like, "Oh my God, this
And
is
I
New
was
York."
like about to hit depression, like literally, like instantly.
Yeah, but I think it comes down to like our jobs. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get open and honest here. Like, before we moved to New York, I was going through a mental health crisis. Like, I was so depressed at my job at this retail place.
I hate when you say that and you smile. It's horrible.
What? Do I
It's
sound
like I was
depressed?
going through a mental health crisis.
Oh my God, because I was literally going through it. Like,
No, it
that
was
not
bad.
okay.
It was really bad.
So I quit that job, and like we didn't know we were moving to New York because again, like when you decide that you're moving to New York, it's all happening really fast. Like
Yeah.
that's just how it goes. So I started a part-time job at Instacart in Poughkeepsie, New York, and I would like pack grocery lists for
Yeah.
people, and like I didn't deliver; they would just pick it up, or someone else would deliver. So I just stayed in the store the whole day. And this was an era where I was like, oh my God, F this retail job. I'm so depressed here. I'm going back to school. So I signed up for school and I did one semester. It was rough. I was completely out of it. Like
Yeah.
my sign language class.
I
like,
forgot about that. Oh my
No,
God.
that-
She would literally like start doing her homework like 2 hours before it was due. And she would like be writing essays like an hour before and somehow would like do it and like pass. I just don't understand. I
Yeah.
don't understand the way you operate.
I
But
don't understand either. And like it was really rough. And then I was like, okay, I'm definitely not ready to go back to school. Like
yeah.
I was like, I'm literally working part-time, and when you do Instacart, you get to choose your own hours. Like the bare minimum I had to work is 16 hours a week.
Yeah.
And like that's like 2 days a week if you want it to be. But I was still barely getting through school. So I was like, clearly I'm not like mentally here. I was also going to therapy during this time. It was a rough era
Yeah.
for me.
There's a lot going on.
But then of course we were in this awkward stage because you were also like in your master's program, and your parents were kind of like wanting you to do that, but you weren't really wanting to, kind of vibe. And then you ended up dropping out of your classes.
Yeah.
And then we kind of just were like, well, what do we do now? Because like we're living
Moved
with
to New York.
because we were living with your parents. Like I quit my job and am in school, and then you dropped out of school. Like it was just such a mess.
It was giving a mental crisis, like actually. Oh my God.
But keep in mind, like this is also 2021, the beginning of 2021. So like COVID
Yeah.
is still kind of
She's
involved.
still slaying.
COVID is slaying still, and we're all just trying to figure out what just happened for the last year, 2 years, and so we were just. I think everyone was kind of going through a crisis, or still is to this day. So we were just like, okay, we have been stuck inside for 2 years in your parents' house, and like, it's not that the living situation was bad living with her parents, but like, it's close corners with like 5 different people in one household.
And we were together for like 4 years already, so it was just kind of like, all right, we gotta do something.
We were ready to start our own little life together.
Yeah.
So what else do you do when you're having a mental health crisis? Move to New York City, right?
Oh yes, and boy did that take us on a toll.
So that's what we did.
It was just like it was. I don't mean to laugh, but it just genuinely was so crazy. And to like look back and like talk about this now is insane. Like we actually haven't had like a full conversation about like what we just did the last 2 years, but like talking about it now is honestly so funny to me.
Yeah, no, I never realized how impulsive it was that we just moved
I just like
there.
dropped out of my master's. You like went to school and
For
then
one
dropped out of
semester.
school, and then we had like you had like $10,000, but like that's all. I had $3,000 to my name. And I was like, let's go. I got my dad as a guarantor. We went. Oh my God. But we had the funnest first year.
We did. We really did.
We never missed a payment. We really proved that. We were just thriving.
It's so funny because literally the reason that we got there is so I didn't have a job. I thought I was going to get a job in New York, like a big girl, like full-time job. But this is post-COVID, and nobody was hiring. Like half of New York City was still shut down, and like businesses were closed.
It was really bad.
I don't know what I thought was going to happen, and like I literally don't have a degree. Like I have an associate's degree, but like what does that do in New York City?
Well, also your associate's degree is in something that you don't even want to pursue anymore.
Yeah,
so
no,
then
exactly.
that just like doesn't even even exist.
So I brought the $10,000 that I made during COVID.
She slayed
At this retail job, and Isabel brought her little $3,000, but she had the full-time job.
Somehow, I would go through a year and I would still have the same amount.
You would always have $3,000.
I don't know how. Like I could like spend all my money and somehow 3,000 would come right back, and I had no idea how. We were so stressed, but at the same time, I genuinely felt like I was floating the first year.
The first year was amazing for me.
We were just like going on shopping sprees. We were going on vacation, and we were like going out to eat every other day. Like we had all this money to spare. Like 10,000 is like a decent savings, but that's not good for New York City.
No.
But we were just like, oh.
But like also when you think about it, like our rent was $1,500.
Yeah.
And you don't need a car in New York, so
no,
we would pay for the Metro card, the unlimited one. It's like $120 a month. But like we would use that stuff. Like we were like swiping away, going everywhere. We wanted to see everything in the first year.
It was just so fun.
So like, if you do the math, $1,500 a month, like that's only $750 each, and like,
that's insane.
I never mentioned. So what ended up happening is I didn't get a job in New York when we went there. So I transferred with my fucking Instacart job. Yes, I'm saying it. Literally paid the bare minimum $15 an hour, but that $15 an hour, I did the full maximum amount of hours I could do, which was 29 hours a week. So that ended up being $350 a week. So
But the catch is she got me on board too. So then we both we both were just doing Instacart, bro, in the middle of Manhattan. And let me tell you, I was thriving.
we were really
I
thriving at
was
first.
thriving.
Okay, so let's get deep into this because this was like literally our life. I feel like I need to
Yes.
document like
Yes.
what this was because this was just such a whirlwind
Insane.
and never how I would have planned living in New York working at Instacart. And not that it's like a horrible company or anything. Yes, they should pay their people
Yes.
more, like the
It
drivers.
is actually really hard
no,
work.
it's like slavery. Like I'm not kidding. And the way the customers treat you is so horrible.
so horrible.
Even though it's through text, I think it makes it easier for people to be horrible to you. Like
Yeah.
that was, oh my god. But at first I was loving it because I was like, I live in New York City. Like I don't
Yeah.
care where I work.
Yeah.
And so basically,
But you also like got out early, so you were able to like enjoy
Yes.
your day in New York City. Like you live in the heart of Manhattan, like getting out at like 12 at noon, and it's like, wow, I have all this time to just go wherever. Like that's amazing.
yeah. So like originally, there's actually, I was working at Fairway, which is like a big New York City grocery store. There's one on the Upper East Side, but I for some reason got transferred to the Upper West Side one. So I had to like do all kinds of transfers because we were on the Upper East Side just to get to work every morning. But like it wasn't that bad. Like people come from like the freaking Bronx. People
Yeah.
come from upstate New York every day to work in New York. So really wasn't that bad at all. But I was going to work at 7 to 3. So I was like on the train at like 5 a.m. And it was really sketch, and I was obviously by myself, and it was like, it definitely got old really fast after the first year.
Yeah.
But then I don't know if you want to go into like your job and how you got into Instacart, but
Yeah, so my journey was just absolute hell. Like, although I'm saying the first year was just so fun, that was like once I got rid of this job. I wanted to like use my degree and like learn more about working with kids with autism, and I was really interested in that. But I think a lot of the times people get stuck in this predicament where like you like your job or your job is decent, but the people at the job make it very hard to like manage, or like the management is just so bad, but you like the job, but the management is just so bad to the point where like you just can't put yourself through that. And I think that's kind of just what happened with me. I would just come home, I'd be so sad. I was working in a school, but it was like we'd be done at 5, but I would still have work to do for the next morning. And if I didn't finish it, I would have to like bring it home, and I'd be like working on graphs and like doing research until 10 o'clock at night. And like you were like making dinner, and like we weren't speaking because I had to like still do work at home. And I just was like, I'm not even getting paid for this. Like, this is horrible.
Yeah.
And shout out to teachers out there. I think teachers should be paid so much more than what they're getting, because it is hard work. And I never like really sat down and thought about the fact that like teachers have to like grade papers, and if you don't finish that in school, then you have to bring that at home. And you also have like kids you have to cater to, and like you have to do their homework while you're trying to like, I just like, I couldn't even imagine. And I got like a little glimpse of that, and it was just horrible. And since this was the job that kind of got us into even being able to go to New York, I felt so bad that like I was already like thinking about quitting like my first month in it. And that was like the most money I've ever made in a job. So I just felt so much guilt. But then I was like, oh my God, like I don't know what I'm gonna do. So my mind is like, let me work at Burlington. So then, I forgot about that. So I was like, I called my dad and I was like, Dad, I know I got this really big job and moved to Manhattan, but I think I'm gonna go work at Burlington Coat Factory. So then
but
and
you
I,
had a
like,
hookup because
I
you
had a
worked
hookup
there.
because I worked there in Poughkeepsie. So then I went back and I went to the Union Square location, and I like literally begged them for a job, and they had to call my like older boss, who I literally just like quit the job to move to New York for like a big opportunity. And now I'm calling my boss from Poughkeepsie, and they have to like tell him like, he's like, oh yeah, she's like a good worker and she's fine. But like he was so confused
'Cause
because
it
I
was a
just
month.
quit and I told him like, oh, I had this big opportunity in New York, and now I'm like working at the same company in a different. Oh my
City.
god, it was so bad. But let me tell you, like, I was so happy there.
The only thing was the hours.
Yeah, the hours were horrible because there would be days where like you would get off or like you would have the day off, but then I would have to go into work at like 4 until like midnight.
Yes, and I'd be getting home at 3, so we just wouldn't see each
Yeah.
other. And
That was hard.
meanwhile, we were working on our social media, and that affected it so much
That
because,
was
like,
just...
how do you make videos when, like, I'm getting home when you're going to work? Like,
Or even the days where you were off, my mind was just already set on my job at 5 for some reason. So like I just couldn't even like go anywhere or do anything because I was just like thinking about, oh, I have to go to work in 8 hours. I'm like one of those people that like if I have like a appointment like 5 hours from now, I cannot do anything with you because I have that happening in 5 hours from now.
no,
That doesn't
the
make
same way.
any sense.
I'm the
But
same
like
way.
we just had to like sit in the house and like just sit there until I left at like 5 o'clock at night.
Yeah, like we would maybe like go to like the park by our house. Shout out Carl Schwartz Park.
Oh yeah, now we can actually talk about these
Yeah, we
things.
can.
Oh my god.
But like, yeah, if she had to work at 5 and we woke up at 8
We would
in the
just sit
morning,
there.
we can't go anywhere. Like, she
No.
has to work at 5, guys.
No, our content creation world was like complete ass at that time.
It was a mess.
It was non-existent.
But at the same time, it was like when things were getting like bigger and like we started to gain a little bit of a more bigger following, and like we actually would get opportunities like to get paid. So we wanted to keep it going because that brand deal money, even though it was very small, it like was saving us, and it saved us until the very end of our.
Especially because like at the first year we only had to do $750 each. So it was
Yeah.
like when we would get like $1,000 for a brand deal, it's like that's
slay.
one of our halves just done already. Mm-hmm. So that was like amazing. That helped us a lot.
Yeah. I contacted my manager and I was like, I have a friend. I was too scared to say it, like my girlfriend. But I was like, I have a friend and they're looking for a job. Are there any openings? And they were like, oh, yeah.
Isn't she such a good girlfriend? Are you kidding me?
So she put Isabel at the Upper East Side, which literally was like a 5-minute walk from her house. Like Isabel
Such a
just
slay.
got
I
to
would just
walk
be
to
like,
work
"Da, da, da, da."
as I was like taking like two trains and like a walk to get to mine.
That's horrible.
But like it was so nice because with that job you could set your own hours. Oh,
Yeah.
this is also at a point where because our social media was growing, we were getting invited to events.
Yes.
And like
which
we
was not
couldn't-
possible with Burlington at all.
Yeah, because you would be working at night most of the
Yeah.
time. But we were like, okay, you know what? This is a slay because we can both work at Instacart. We can literally work the same days and have the same days off. So we basically just did 7 to 3, like 5 days a
Yeah.
week. And we had so much time together. And then when we got out of work, we could just run around the city because it was still so early in the day.
How did we make that work? Like you just saying that to me, I'm like, okay. But I'm very impressed.
I'm very impressed.
And that's the thing too. That's why I'm so happy we did do New York, because I feel so invincible. And I think a lot of people that like move to New York, if you can make that work and not go homeless, you can do anything. Like my parents are always just like, well, I don't think you should go here. I don't think you should do this. And I don't know about that. And I'm just like, Mom,
When we moved to Austin, your family was like, oh, there was a shooting in Austin downtown.
like, I don't know if you're going to be able
And
to
I
pay
was
that.
like,
And I was,
do you
I'm
know
like,
how many gunshots I hear every night
oh my
living
God,
in New York?
so bad. But I just like feel like I can do anything.
So speaking of safety,
I feel like there was like a really big switch that just like, obviously like New York has always had its issues here and there, but I do feel like there was like a point in time where I felt like things were like getting really bad safety wise.
yeah, because you have to think too, like we didn't go into New York blindsided. We had visited
No.
like every weekend for 2 years before we actually made the move because we lived upstate, so it was so
Yeah.
easy to come and visit. And it was completely different vibes. Like it was fine for a little bit, and then we weren't there during COVID, but we heard like it was completely empty. Like
Yeah.
no one left their houses. But then I think once the city started to come back and become more lively, I think the crime got like worse than it's ever been. Not ever,
Yeah.
obviously, like the 70s and stuff were really bad in New York, but like I think it's the worst it's been in a while there.
And I feel like it almost felt like it was getting closer and closer to us. Like there were a few times where we would like almost get like followed home, just like really weird, strange, sketchy people on the subway just like looking over at us. Then there was like a lot of shootings happening near and outside of our house like during the day. Like I'd get like a citizen app notification that there was like gunshot casings outside of my house, and like then that thing that happened at the bank, the stabbing.
Yeah, so the fairway
Like
that we eventually both worked at, there was like a Chase Bank, I think, right next to that building, and
and we were
there
at work
was,
during that.
yeah, there was a stabbing,
Yeah.
and the security officer
Just so
died.
unprovoked for no reason. But
And it
like
was
it
his
was like
first day working. Like,
things happening like that over and over again, and I feel like we started to feel very paranoid, and we always talked about like how every time we would walk to work we just always felt like there was just bad energy and that something was going to happen. And
yeah.
I kind of like, this is very dark, but I just like almost like thought that every time I left my house that that was like going to be my last day,
I
which
started to
is
feel like that
horrible.
too.
I don't know what that
Oh, you know
was.
what? That's like when I made the switch from working in the upper west side location to the upper east side because I could walk to work
Yeah.
and it be 5 minutes and not have to take the trains. Because this was a time when like the trains were getting worse and worse. The crimes on the train, like there was that huge like shooting. Like there were a lot of bad things happening on the subways, and I was so paranoid to go to work like that. I almost like had this phase where like I was scared to leave the house.
Yeah.
And especially when
Just
I
horrible.
worked at like 5 a.m. and it was still dark outside and I was on the train by myself, like I was like so anxious. This is when I started to like really like resent New York and my choices to live there. I don't regret living there now, but like this was a really dark time. Like being so scared to leave your house
And we both
is,
felt it, so it was almost so hard to like be there for each other because we both didn't feel safe at all, and we're both women too. So, and it's like they make everything so hard and illegal to have to protect yourself.
yeah.
So we didn't have anything to protect ourselves if something happened.
And I've never like spoke about this before, but I think this like anxiety to leave the house got so intense that like we eventually got to a point where we were losing money, like we were running out of money, and I knew I needed to get another job,
Yeah.
but I was also so anxious to apply to jobs because I was so scared to like have to take the trains again. And that might sound dramatic to people who are from there or whatever, but like in my head, like I worked this up in my head so much to like I was scared to like
Yeah.
go anywhere, like even for fun, like with Isabel in the daytime. Like I just like wanted to be home all the time.
I also just feel like I know a lot of people like have trouble with like homeless people and stuff, and like that has never bothered me. Like those are just normal people that just happen to have something really shitty happen to them. But I did feel like it started to get like violent. Like
Yeah.
even near our house, like we'd always have homeless people around, and like they would ask for something, and if you didn't have it, like they would just say, okay, like have a nice day. But like it started to get like very violent and like running after you, or like the constant like pushing into the tracks, and like
Yeah.
just like hearing about that all the time, it just like I didn't even tell the story. Like the day that I went to my job, the first day I saw somebody die.
Yeah.
And I was like, this was my first day like in New York, and I just was like, wow. And I know that like people that like are born and raised there, like unfortunately deal with this stuff all the time, but it was just like it got to the point where you just become so desensitized, which is horrible.
One thing about moving to New York is you follow along and adapt to what other people are doing. So
Yeah.
when you see something really concerning happening on the street, you look at other people and like they see it too, but they look away and keep walking. It sounds horrible, but like in New York, you really have to protect yourself. And like everybody kind of builds this character of like, just pretend you didn't see it and like keep walking because you can end up putting yourself in a situation. And it's so horrible because like now living in Texas, we were talking to our neighbors and like they were just like, no, like in Texas, we will always like make sure you're good and like ask if everyone's okay and like
Yeah.
whatever. But like
No.
you can't do that in New York because things are just more intense and the mental illness is more intense.
But I think that like stressed me out more because I was scared that something was going to happen to me and nobody would help me at
Yeah.
all. And then I would just be stuck in the situation because we've seen things so many times and I didn't know what to do because it's like you literally don't know who has what at what time. And like that's the thing with like the subways, like they really need to have like security stuff and they just have nothing. You just like hop the turnstile and that's it. Like you don't know who has what, who is like taking their meds or not taking their meds, or like is in dire need of something and they don't have it and they're like on the edge of snapping, and you're just like piled with these people
No,
and
I
it's
I
so
think
scary.
by the time we were done with New York,
We were
I
like
think
not even people
I was
anymore.
close to snapping. Like
Yeah.
I didn't even trust myself like every day. Like I
Yeah.
was just like I am so far from myself.
And we never like really talked about that. We talked like obviously about like some of the negative stuff that we experienced, but I feel like we never like went into detail just because I feel like it's such a touchy subject. New York as a whole is a touchy subject, and I'm sure there's going to be comments under this that are going to be like, eh. But I do think it's important to recognize like how horrible it is that the entire city is just desensitized to like people being hurt and like abused and murdered and
In need.
like it's a need, yes. And like we just like walk by all these people, like we literally, there was one time where we were in the subway and we saw that guy that like you literally could see his
Yeah.
rib cage. Like I don't, I would give him like 5 days left to live. Like it was
It was
so
really bad.
graphic and I didn't have anything on me and I just felt so horrible. But like it's like all these people are just like so busy of getting home and catching the next train, and like it's like you don't have time to like go get this person a burger or something. Like you just have to go and you have to go home. And that is so like vile and disgusting that like we are like that as people. But like
It
we are
is.
like victims to it too.
Yeah, but I was gonna say that like it's also sad that like we the people can
Yeah.
help each other out, but like the system has the power to help people. Like that's what the
Yeah.
system is supposed to be in place
And this
for.
country is literally so rich, has so much money, and we just like put it all towards new apartments and new coffee shops and new this. And there's literally like the housing crisis in New York is so bad. Like I remember like I'd be walking to work and there'd be
Yes.
people like just trying to find shelter and like trying to be warm, and they would like you can like open a door and then you have to put a key into the next door, but they'd be in the middle. And people would have to like walk over like a human body to like get out to like go to work, and like the people didn't have anything on them. It was just so cold out and like there's
Yeah.
just nowhere to go, and there's just so many people in New York that even the shelters are overpopulated. There's nowhere for them to be. It's just
Yeah.
horrible.
Or I
And just like
remember like walking to work at like 5 a.m. Like that's a prime time where there's not a lot of people around typically. And I felt most scared because I was alone, but there was like a restaurant next to us that I had to like walk past, and like they had like outdoor dining, and like there would be like all the time like different people that would like sleep in the outdoor
yeah,
dining place. And like I obviously I'm not judging them for that, but it just like it was like also another
it was alarming.
reason that you have to have like your guard up, because it's just like you just don't know what's going to happen. And if these people had the resources that they need, like we wouldn't all have to be so guarded in New
Yeah.
York. Like it shouldn't be normal to be like that. Like that's not
Yeah.
normal.
I think it just got to the point where it was just like so emotionally and physically draining. Like, especially, like, I remember the last 2 months, like, I feel like you were like out before I even was, but then when I got out, it was like it was really bad. Like, I just genuinely like didn't even feel like a person. I just like was like a zombie going to work thinking that something was going to happen to me and that I wouldn't have enough time to like tell you or like find a phone. Like, I was like planning this all out in my head, and like that was just such a horrible way to like live life. And it's also really hard because it's like this is the city I always wanted to live in, and I did it, and I felt like an obligation to just like keep going. I'm so sorry about these cars, guys. People are insane. But I remember also just feeling guilty because we were having so much fun at events, and like our career was like really taking off when we were in New York, and we kind of knew that like things were a lot better when we moved to New York versus in Poughkeepsie. And it was like this like going back and forth between like, oh, these events and like these opportunities are so good and all these other people live here and maybe they're miserable too, but like the opportunities are just so great, and like it just feels like, oh, well, this is just so great, like why would I give this up? And then it's like, well, Isabel, like your mental health is horrible. Like you're like going to the event for an hour, but then you come home and you're like terrified. And if you don't have the Uber code, you're like really terrified because now you have to walk home, and like it's just like it was like we were going back and forth so much, and it was such an emotional decision to leave.
It
I
really
think
was. But
it wasn't
before
easy.
but before we get to the leaving part, like maybe we should go into the good things about New York because
Oh my God, yeah.
I feel like in my mind, like, and towards the end of New York, like everything, like that reminded me of New York, I had a negative
Yeah.
connotation towards it. Like I just was so done with New York, and it's so crazy because after our first year, actually, we were contemplating leaving, and we couldn't tell what to do. Like we could not decide.
There were
Like
tears.
things were getting bad. Okay, what happened was, okay, my aunt got married in November. We went to Hawaii. After that trip, I think it was so life-changing, like being close to nature and stuff, that when we came back to New York, we were just like, what are we doing here? Like this is such a, like, if there's like a city in America that screams capitalism, I feel like it is New York.
Oh my God, yeah.
Obviously LA too, but like at least LA, like there's some nature and like it's pretty and there's mountains and oceans and whatever. But
New
New
York
York
is
just
just all business, all shopping, and
concrete.
yeah.
And so when we came back from that trip, I think that's when I was like, wow, I really don't want to go back to New York. That was the first time I felt like I don't want to go back to New York. Like this is not home
Yeah.
to me.
But we stayed.
But we stayed because we always told ourselves that like 2 years is like a good amount of time to really experience it.
Yeah.
And we really did experience it the second
Yeah.
year.
But it's crazy because like the second year was the harder year, but also we were doing like the best in like social media. So it was like, which I always think is just so interesting because it's like the two are like interchangeable, but they're also so different. Like our mental health was just so below the bar, but our career was doing great. But we also were like working at Instacart, and we like weren't doing like social media full time yet, but like it was like we would leave, like literally, I kid you not, we would go into Instacart,
7
we would
a.m.
do like 7 to 12. There was a day we left, we got an Uber code to go to the Drew Barrymore show. After Instacart, we had to go back home and like change our outfits and like go to meet Drew Barrymore and be on her show, and then go back the next day back to like Instacart and
7
stand
a.m.
next to like the ice box And like, but we were just like with Drew Barrymore.
Yeah.
And that's like so crazy because like it wasn't a full-time thing yet, but it was like we were living like a Hannah Montana life.
Yeah, and the thing too was like social media is so deceiving. Like
Yeah.
so deceiving because we didn't talk about working at Instacart. Like we just
No.
tried to like talk about New York and the positive things, and we didn't
Yeah.
want our account to be so negative because things were so negative and bad at that time. But like if that's what we talked about every day, like you guys would be like,
Oh my
okay, well
God.
this is really depressing.
Yeah.
So we kind of just kept a lot of it to ourselves, which I think was a good thing. But we also did share. We did share
Bits
a
and
lot
pieces,
too on
yeah.
TikTok about it. But like people had no idea that we were like working. I think people thought we were just doing this full time.
No.
And then the people at our jobs, there were like a
They would
couple.
like see us on TV, and it's like, what?
No, there were like a couple of people at Instacart that like knew that we did social media, and
Yeah.
like they were like, "Why do you guys work here? Like, you are influencers." But we were just
It's
like,
like we live in
I
Manhattan.
don't think the people know that like, even being an influencer, like we have like 100K, but like, you have to have like millions of followers to really be making like bank. So like,
Yeah.
and especially because we're living in New York, like when we got a brand deal, that lasted us 1 month because
Yeah,
our
because
bills
rent was
were.
so high. But I just think it was just crazy, like the dynamic of like, all right, we're gonna go to this dingy job, and then we're like gonna go home and get ready, and then go to an event, and then come home, and then go to it. Like it was just so wild, and I think that's what made it so hard to decide, like, at least for me, like if we're gonna stay or if we're gonna go, because the double life almost was fun for me.
It was fun.
Besides like the fact that like we were like we could never go to like an after party or like do anything fun because
We
it
had to
was
go to
like
that damn Instacart in the morning.
like it was just so terrible. Like we had friends that like were like creators as well, and like they actually did this full time, so it just like felt like, oh, like what do you have Burlington in the morning? Like, it's just like, yes I do, because I can't pay my bills. And
Yes,
it's
I have
so
fucking Burlington in the
sad.
morning.
But I mean, there were so many good moments. We had so many like romantic moments. I love every time we went to Tep. That was like a
Yes.
dream come true. That always felt like a date to me. Just going to like museums. We would always like try. If you guys have never been to New York, definitely try to go to. They have like the pay what you wish
Yeah.
museum nights. I forget. Are they Tuesdays, Fridays?
It depends on the museum.
Yeah. That was amazing though, because we were poor. So that was like,
Yeah.
pay what you want. I'm paying $1.
Yeah. And I know that's probably bad, but like also it's an
No.
option. So
Yeah. At least I'm paying,
yeah,
because I can choose to pay 0.
exactly.
And I gave 1. But like that was so fun, going to museums. We always loved going by the water, or like some days we would just like pick like a specific part, like West Village or like downtown, and we would
Just go
just
walking.
walk around. And
There's
I
so
really
much
do
to
miss
see.
that. It's a lot to see.
Like one thing we're kind of struggling with in Texas is like we love the nature, and this is literally what we came here for, is
Yeah.
to be like at peace. And like especially after New York, we have been thinking about going to another big city after this, but like I think we really needed this to just regroup
Oh
from
my
New
God,
York.
yeah.
And but we've only been here for 3 months, and we're just like like I love Texas, but like it was kind of fun to just walk outside and like you're in everything. Like even though we were in like a kind of weird place in the Upper East Side where there wasn't a lot going on like on our
But
street.
I loved that. Like there was still
Yeah.
more going on there
Yeah.
than there is here. So then it was just like, it was a nice mix of both.
Yeah, but like here it's like you walk outside and like it's literally just like
Nothing.
houses and grass.
Grass.
But like I love that. That's what I came here for. But sometimes we are like, I love this, but like also that was really nice to have. And I think that happens anytime you move. Like there's
Yeah.
gonna be things you miss in one city that you don't have now. That's just normal. But we definitely loved the walkability of New York.
Oh my God, I miss it so much. New York is just one of those places that like you hate it, but you stay for 10 years, or like you like had your peace with it and you leave, but it always will like linger in the back of your
Yes,
mind of like,
always.
should I have left? Or like, yes, I should have left, but like I do miss this and this and this. Like I can never just like bash New York as a place, as a city, as a state. It's just it's so different from honestly anything, and I think I'm realizing that now because I thought like this would be different. But I don't think that New York is a place for us to live. Definitely would recommend it as a place to visit, but I don't think it's like for us personally. But I definitely, there's a lot of things I do miss about it.
I think it's a place that like everyone who has like the itch to go there should pursue that
Yeah,
because we learned so much living there and
we
we
grew up like 10 years.
yeah, I feel like I
And I think that's
aged
why
20.
we're just like stagnant on this couch all the time and like don't want to
Yes.
leave because it was just so much on the mind and body that
We
I
have
don't want to leave.
sorry, we have like some followers that live here in Austin and they're like, "You guys, have you guys been here and here and here and here?"
No.
And we're like, "Not yet. We'll probably get there at some point." But I
In
think
like a
like
year.
it was just so much in New York that like we just genuinely are recouping, and I think it's gonna
Yeah.
take a while for. I heard shout out to where I live, who now lives in LA, but she lived in New York for
Yeah.
a lot of years.
Like 10 years.
And she said that even after a year of her living in California now, she's still like her nervous system is like getting back on track from living
Yeah.
there. Like it's just
It's
such a
really
crazy city.
bad for your mental health.
It is.
Isn't it like one of the worst places for like quality of life?
It's the most stressful city to live
Yeah.
in. Like it has
And
the
I felt
most
that.
amount of stressed
I felt that
people.
100%. I guess we didn't have like a question to ask each other.
I was just gonna ask, do you think we left at the right time, or do you think we should have stayed longer?
That is a great question. I think we did leave at the right time. I think it's very admirable that we were able to recognize that our mental health was just being defeated completely and that we made kind of like a selfish decision to just get up and leave for the betterment of ourselves because I feel like if we would have did another year, I don't know how we would have ended up money wise, but also just like we were not okay as people. And I feel like it was tying into our relationship a little bit because we both were just bickering and fighting and we just weren't happy.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're in such a better place now. Even if this isn't like our dream place, I feel like we needed to do that move. What about you?
I think you know my answer, but I definitely think we left at the right time. Like
Yeah.
I would have actually lost my mind if we stayed even a month longer. And I don't know if you remember,
was
but like
bad.
it was so bad. I've never said this before. Like if you're watching, this is the first time I ever said this like in public or publicly to people, but we were like so low and so down.
I don't even mean to laugh. I just
No,
think
I
it's
know.
so crazy.
We were so down bad living in New York the last year that we almost considered like just moving back in her parents' house.
And they said no.
We wanted to move back in her parents' house and purposely like willingly still pay the rent there just to not have to be there anymore.
Yeah.
We even
I
considered
forgot about that.
I know.
Were we gonna like stay there like over the weekend or something? Or like during the weekdays and like pay like $500 a month to like
To come
take
back.
the train?
It even got to a point where, do you remember, this is so bad. I do not recommend this, but do you remember when it got so bad that I was like, I cannot live in New York anymore. I'm going to take out a loan to pay our rent off so we can go live
I
somewhere
do
else.
remember that.
Like
That is
I was
horrible. I'm so glad you did not do that.
I'm glad I didn't do that either, but I was so depressed. I
Yeah.
genuinely did not think I was going to make it through the past like 6 months living there.
I think it's so interesting for you guys to listen to this because I really wonder if you guys even knew it was this bad because like you said, like we didn't want to be like the Debbie Downers of like, oh, we moved to New York and it was so hard. Like I feel like everyone does that and like that's why the people that are born and raised there say don't move there because it's hard. But it's really interesting because I want to know like if they realized it was this
Yeah,
bad.
if you're watching us in the YouTube video and you can like comment back to us. Obviously, if you're listening to the podcast, you can't
Yeah.
comment, but did
I
you know it was this bad?
I think that's just why we are the way that we are now. I think we're automatically introverted people, but I think we have gotten like to the max of like hibernation because that was just so much for the human mind that I don't think was good for us.
Yeah.
I'm glad we did it, but I'm glad we're out of that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, to wrap this
Yeah.
up, I was just going to say that like I'm so grateful that we did New York.
Yeah.
Even if it got rough, like it was such a learning it was such a
We
learning
learned
curve.
a
Like we learned a lot.
lot.
And I'm so thankful for that. Like even though I genuinely did not know if I was going to make it through, like I learned so much and I did make it through and like that's
You
something to
did.
celebrate. And you did too. And I'm really proud. Like I feel like that brought us a lot closer in our relationship because we had
Yeah,
never
it did.
experienced such high levels of stress together as a couple.
Never.
So definitely grateful for
Yeah.
the experience no matter which way it went.
100%. Thank you guys so much for listening. This was episode 2, and I hope you guys really enjoyed this. Make sure to go follow us on all our socials, including Threads. You can follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, literally everywhere. There should be like a link somewhere.
Everything is Isabel and Tamera, but our
Yes.
podcast Instagram is mutualmindspod. So if you want to see like sneak peeks of things and if you want to be featured in our podcast episodes,
Yes.
definitely follow that account so you can be on the lookout for things that we post there.
And there will be new episodes every Wednesday on YouTube as a video and Spotify and all that as audio. Thank you guys so much for being here, and I can't wait to see you guys next week.